You know, when you hear about Afghanistan's economy since 2021, the first word that probably comes to mind is collapse. But the story on the ground, well, it's so much more complicated than that. It's this incredible paradox of deep, deep crisis and some truly surprising resilience. So let's get into what's really going on.
So what is it? A total collapse or some kind of unlikely comeback? As we're about to find out, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's both.
And this is the contradiction right at the heart of it all. On one side, you have a country that's been through a historic, crippling economic shock. But on the other, you're seeing exports that are actually surging and a currency that's remarkably stable. How can those two things possibly be true at the exact same time? To really get our heads around this, we first have to look at the immense strain the economy is under. We've got to understand the foundations of its deep, deep fragility. The events of August 2021 were like the first domino in a long line. First, a massive economic contraction. Then, the central bank's assets were frozen, which basically cut the country off from the global banking system. That uncertainty, it led to a massive brain drain, with tens of thousands of skilled people leaving. And as if that wasn't enough, on top of all that, you have natural disasters like droughts and earthquakes, plus a huge wave of returning refugees. It's just crisis after crisis.
And all of this hits people directly, in their everyday lives. We're talking about high unemployment, widespread poverty. Food insecurity is a massive, severe challenge. And it's only made worse by the restrictions on women's ability to work. And even though there are some signs of life in the economy, the population is growing so fast that for the average person, income just isn't going up.
And get a load of this number. In 2025 alone, 2.8 million Afghans came back from neighboring countries. Just think about the incredible pressure that puts on an already overloaded system, on jobs, on housing, on schools, on hospitals. It's a huge humanitarian challenge stacked right on top of an economic one.
Okay, but this is where the whole story takes a really unexpected turn. Because amidst all of this strain, we're seeing these amazing pockets of resilience. This is the other side of that paradox we talked about.
After that first massive economic collapse, you'd think things would just stay down. But nope, Afghanistan's GDP has actually grown for a second year in a row. It's estimated to hit about 2.5% in 2024. Now, this isn't a boom by any stretch, but it is real, actual growth, and it's mostly being driven by things like agriculture and mining.
But honestly, what's even more surprising is the currency. The Afghani hasn't just been stable, it's actually gotten stronger against the US dollar. That's just wild. This stability, which is helped by the central bank auctioning off US dollars regularly, has been absolutely crucial in keeping inflation in check and preventing prices from just spiraling out of control.
And then you look at exports in just 1 month. October 2025, they hit $267 million. That's a 13% jump from the month before. But here's the kicker. This happened while major trade routes with Pakistan were shut down. So, how on earth did they manage that?
Well, this chart right here tells the story. They adapted, and they did it fast. Afghan traders basically rerouted everything away from Pakistan and through new routes in Iran and Central Asia. And look, India is now the single biggest destination for Afghan exports. It's a complete realignment of how the country trades with the world.
Now, this wasn't just traders figuring it out on their own. This was official policy. After the borders closed, the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, came out and basically told traders, hey, go find new routes, don't rely on just one. It was a clear signal of a major strategic pivot. So we have this really fragile economy that is also, somehow, incredibly adaptive. But there's another huge piece of this puzzle we need to talk about. A very unique international aid strategy that's designed to help the Afghan people directly while trying to navigate a super complex political reality.
And a key player here is the World Bank. Through programs like Afghanistan Futures, they provide all this critical data and analysis. They're kind of like the eyes and ears on the ground, helping the international community figure out what's working, what's not, and how to design aid programs that actually reach the people who need them.
Now, the aid strategy itself has really evolved. At first, it was just pure emergency humanitarian stuff. Then it shifted to providing basic services through partners like the UN. And now we're in what they call Approach 3.0, which uses new grants to keep that support going, but with one absolutely critical condition.
And that condition is the entire foundation of the strategy.
Approach 3.0 gives large-scale aid money directly to UN agencies and other international organizations on the ground. The whole point is to make sure the funds stay completely outside the systems and the control of the interim Taliban administration, the de facto authorities.
And baked right into this approach is something called the principled approach. And this isn't just a side note, it's a non-negotiable requirement. It says that projects must put women at the very center of what they do, making sure aid is both implemented by women and for women and girls. It's a direct effort to push back against the restrictions they're facing. Okay, so let's pull these two very different stories back together. One of incredible fragility, the other of surprising resilience. What you're left with is a future that is hanging in a really, really precarious balance.
This slide really sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? The two faces of the Afghan economy today. On one side, the fragility of poverty and dependence on aid. On the other, the resilience shown through that modest growth and adaptive trade. Both are true, and they exist in this constant tension.
And we have to be clear, this resilience is walking on a tightrope. For example, food products now make up a whopping 82% of all exports. That makes the entire economy incredibly vulnerable to one bad harvest or a drought. The banking sector is still on shaky ground, and without some major reforms, there's a very real risk the economy could just stagnate in the long run.
Which really brings us to this final massive question. The Afghan people have shown they are incredibly resilient, and international aid has been a vital lifeline. But can this unique combination of grassroots adaptation and outside support actually build a truly sustainable economic future? Honestly, that remains the great unanswered question.